The Targaryens are a savage race.
We act with holy purpose.
Even if you're just a casual Game of Thrones fan, it's hard not to get excited about all the awesome new characters confirmed to appear in the upcoming third season of House of the Dragon, premiering on June 21st. There's going to be some new Hightowers, some new Manderlys, and some uber-cool Northmen like Roddy the Ruin. There's also this one woman who would go on to marry Lord Cregan Stark, and she's someone who really puts an end to all the civil warring that had been going on in Westeros and House Targaryen. So, without further ado, let's check out all the new characters confirmed in House of the Dragon Season 3.
A new dawn is coming. A new line of unsullied kings.
Lord Ormund Hightower, played by James Norton. Ormund Hightower didn't fly a dragon, but boy did he leave an impact on the Dance of Dragons almost as much as any dragon rider. During the war, Ormund was the Lord of the Hightower and the head of House Hightower at the time, which made him one of the most influential men in the Green faction's power circle. I mean, the Greens were called the Greens because that was the color of House Hightower. On top of that, he was the nephew of Sir Otto Hightower, who had served as Hand of the King to Jaehaerys I, Viserys I, and Aegon Targaryen II. To be played by James Norton in the upcoming season, Ormund would lead the Reach forces for the Greens and would back his kingsman, King Aegon II. In the books, his army had 1,000 archers, 1,000 knights, 3,000 men-at-arms, and several thousand more men, albeit these men weren't really trained soldiers and had far less discipline than their colleagues. But the thing is, the Reach wasn't fully behind him. Houses like Tarly and Beesbury supported Rhaenyra and her Blacks, so much so that Lord Alan Tarly and Sir Alan Beesbury together infiltrated the Hightower camps and killed his scouts, while Lord Owen Costain took their baggage train and left next to nothing. Lord Hightower wanted to wait so that he could have the support of the reinforcements coming from King's Landing, which did make sense practically, but was a folly of judgment because at the Battle of the Honeywine, Lord Hightower and his unfortunate men found themselves stuck near the river and between enemy forces. As a result, his lines began to break, and it seemed like defeat was all but inevitable. But then something happened. You see, Prince Daeron Targaryen, Ormond's squire and Aegon II's brother, arrived on his beautiful young dragon Tessarion and turned the tide of the battle in favor of the Greens. After that, Ormund used Vigilance, the Valyrian steel family sword of House Hightower, to knight him, naming him Sir Daeron the Daring. Ormund and Daeron would later join forces only to sack Bitterbridge, because that's where Aegon and Helena's son, Prince Maelor Targaryen, had been murdered, and although Ormund would later prove to be a skillful general and defeat some 6,000 of Garibald the Grey's men in the First Battle of Tumbleton, he was defeated and killed by Rodrik Dustin, who had joined the battle along with his Winter Wolves. And since we're already on the subject, let's check out Lord Rodrik Dustin, aka Roddy the Ruin, played by Tommy Flanagan. Rodrik Dustin was the head of House Dustin and the Lord of Barrowtown during the Dance of Dragons. Barrowtown and House Dustin owe their allegiance to House Stark, and the Dustins are the bannermen of the Starks. Also called Roddy the Ruin, Lord Rodrik was a hoary old warrior who, despite his old age, was a fierce and savage fighter. Wearing a war horn, a helm, and a shield in battle, only a fool or a madman wouldn't fear him, for he would cut through 20 men with ease and kill lords and knights even after taking heavy injuries. As you may already know, the North supported the Blacks during the bloodiest Targaryen civil war, which meant that Lord Dustin and his house also supported the Blacks. And we must note that Lord Dustin changed the course of the war. On Lord Cregan Stark's orders, Rodrik led some 2,000 northern soldiers called the Winter Wolves. The interesting thing about the Winter Wolves is that they follow an old northern tradition, according to which the older men and warriors of the house would go during winter on battles, but they weren't expected to return because the Winter Wolves mostly fought to the death. This was done to ensure that the young ones had enough food that would be wasted on the older Northmen. Needless to say, this acceptance and expectation of death made the Winter Wolves a fearsome vanguard full of deadly warriors. Anyways, Rodrik Dustin and his men would meet with Lady Sabitha Frey, the wife of Lord Forrest Frey of the Twins, and head to the battle by the lakeshore where nearly 1,300 to 1,500 of the Winter Wolves would perish fighting the Lannisters. Even Lord Frey himself was slain during that battle, but Roddy the Ruin would keep on keeping on. Meanwhile, Aemond had been given the charge of protecting the realm as regent to King Aegon II, who had been gravely injured during the battle at Rook's Rest. Aemond was of haughty temperament and decided to charge on the Black forces, so he took an army of some 4,000 men under the charge of Sir Criston Cole and moved away from King's Landing. But Cole was killed by archers, and Rodrik Dustin himself sounded the charge, which led to what we now know as the Butcher's Ball, a battle so fierce and so brutal, with so many Greens killed, that Garibald Grey would later say about it, "Today was butchery, not battle." During the first Battle of Tumbleton, Roddy the Ruin would come face to face with Lord Ormund Hightower, but Sir Brynden Hightower would put himself between the two men and would sever Rodrik's shield arm. However, despite losing that arm, Roddy the Ruin would go on to slay both men, and the Greens would lose a great commander in Ormund. Alysanne Blackwood, aka Black Aly, played by Annie Chaparro. Alysanne Blackwood, better known as Black Aly, is someone we really wish received more love and attention than she got. She was from House Blackwood, aunt to Lord Benjicott Blackwood of Raventree Hall, and later became the second wife of Lord Cregan Stark of Winterfell after Lord Stark's first wife died during childbirth. In House of the Dragon, she's played by Annie Chaparro, so yes, we're finally set to see this woman in live action. Now, Black Aly wasn't a soft courtly type, and honestly, thank the old gods for that. She was tall and thin, with thick black curls that could fall below her waist, but the woman had a reputation for grit rather than beauty. People called her fierce and fearless, and she had a bawdy tongue, which is very Blackwood of her. Aly lost her maidenhead on horseback at 13, and by 129 AC, House Blackwood had declared for Rhaenyra Targaryen and the Blacks. At the Battle of the Burning Mill, Sir Amos Bracken killed Lord Samwell Blackwood, but then a weirwood arrow struck through the eye slit of his helm. The Blackwoods said that the killing arrow came from Alysanne, and we know that Aly was a super skilled archer and a horsebreaker. Later, she shared her tent with Sabitha Frey while on campaign and commanded 300 Riverland archers at the Battle of the King's Road in 131 AC. After Benjicott broke Lord Boros Baratheon's flank, Aly's archers cut down royalist knights and unhorsed Boros, who Lord Kermit Tully later killed. The lads advanced on King's Landing after that, but by the time they arrived, Aegon II was dead, and the city welcomed them. Aly also became one of the rare commanders who fought from the first battle of the Civil War to the very last. But we believe that Aly's real masterstroke came after the war. Cregan Stark arrived for the Hour of the Wolf and had suspects arrested over Aegon II's poisoning, among them Corlys Velaryon. Aegon III pardoned Corlys, but Cregan could have ignored that since Cregan was the regent, and Aegon III was but a minor boy king. Aly asked him to let the pardon stand and argued for the realm, honor, and peace. We don't know if Cregan paid heed to that, but according to Mushroom's accounts, Aly offered anything in her power if Cregan would listen to her, and the Lord Cregan asked for her hand in marriage, something that she agreed to, and would even bear 4 girls to Lord Stark, but the House Stark that we know today actually originated from Lord Stark's third wife, who was also his distant cousin. Anyways, by ensuring that Lord Corlys Velaryon got to keep his head on his torso, she ensured that the realm was finally out of wars to fight for a long, long time. Sir Adrien Redfort, played by Barry Sloane. Sir Adrien Redfort came from House Redfort, one of the oldest and most respected noble houses of the Vale, with a line that went all the way back to the First Men, and during the Dance of the Dragons, he backed Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen and the Blacks. In the books, Adrien was recruited into Rhaenyra's Queensguard after the Blacks took King's Landing. He was one of 6 knights chosen at the same time to fill vacancies in her guard, with Lord Commander Lorend Marbrand in charge of that recruitment. Sadly, his story didn't end with glory or peace because Adrien was killed at Dragonstone on the 22nd day of the 10th moon of 130 AC when Sir Alfred Broom betrayed Rhaenyra's side and stabbed him in the back with a spear. In House of the Dragon Season 3, Sir Adrien Redfort was portrayed by Barry Sloane. His casting was first announced in April 2025, and fans got a glimpse of him in the Season 3 teaser trailer. He was seen behind Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen, dressed in full-plate Queensguard armor, inside a dim hallway that matched Dragonstone's visual style. Sloane also confirmed that he took part in the March 2026 reshoots, and the interesting bit here is the timing. In Fire and Blood, Adrien joined Rhaenyra's Queensguard after King's Landing fell, but the show seemed to bring him in earlier, likely to establish him as part of her inner guard before that point. Sir Luthor Largent, played by Tom Cullen. Luthor Largent was a low-born knight who later had a house of his own, and that's saying something. I mean, we already know just how difficult it is for lowborns to rise up the ranks. Luthor, though, was a skilled warrior and made all the right choices until he didn't. He first served in the City Watch under King Viserys Targaryen I, and later became its commander during the Dance of the Dragons, and in House of the Dragon, he'll be played by Tom Cullen. The thing you need to understand about Luthor Largent is that he's a mountain of a man, and we do mean mountain. Luthor was described as fierce and almost 7 feet tall. There's even a rumor that he once killed a warhorse with a single punch. As we mentioned, during Viserys' reign, Luthor was a captain of the City Watch and commanded one of the 7 city gates. Oh, and did you know that Aegon the Dragon built these 7 gates in honor of the Faith of the Seven? Well, now you do. Anyways, in 129 AC, the Green Council promoted him to commander because among the Aegon II loyalists in the City Watch, Luthor seemed to be the most ferocious, but the wise Otto Hightower clearly didn't fully trust him, and as a result, he placed his own son, Sir Gawain Hightower, as Luthor's second-in-command to keep watch over Sir Luthor Largent. But that would prove to be one of Otto's many follies, because when King's Landing fell, Luthor and his gold cloaks turned on the Greens. Their real loyalty was to Prince Daemon Targaryen, their former commander, and Luthor personally killed Gawain, and this is how Luthor got his House Largent after Rhaenyra ennobled him as the new queen of the 7 kingdoms. But soon enough, Queen Helaena, Aegon II's sister wife, committed suicide, and the small folk believed it was Luthor who actually murdered her on the Queen's orders, and while that was far from the truth, the anger still built up inside the small folk. Later, during the riots of King's Landing, it was believed that Luthor's warhorse trampled a little girl to death, and she became the first victim of the confrontation, which pushed the small folk over the edge, and as a result, an angry mob overwhelmed his men, and Luthor himself was beaten to death. So much so that when they got to his body the following day, they could recognize him only by his size. Sir Jon Roxton, aka Bold Jon, played by Joplin Sibtane. Sir Jon Roxton was better known as Bold Jon Roxton, but the more you learn about him, the more you figure that being bold and being heroic are 2 very different things. Jon was head of House Roxton, fought for King Aegon Targaryen II, and was the wielder of the Valyrian steel sword Orphan Maker, but he's probably the most famous for being part of the Caltrops and for the death of one of the 2 deserters, and in House of the Dragon Season 3, he'll be played by Joplin Sibtane. Jon had courage, no doubt, but he also had a brutal temper, and on top of that, the man was fierce, smart, and cunning, and that, my friends, is a dangerous mix for any one person. At the Battle of the Honeywine, Jon used Orphan Maker to mortally wound Lord Owen Costane, who later died slowly from that wound. After the Green victory, made possible by Prince Daeron and Tessarion, Jon knighted Titus Peake for his valor. Poor Titus didn't get much time to enjoy that honor because he died 6 days later in a skirmish with broken men. Then, during the Battle of Tumbleton, Jon's darker side fully took over. After Lord Ormund Hightower died, Jon wanted command of the host, but it went to Sir Hobart Hightower instead. Once the battle turned into a sacking, Jon became fixated on Lady Sharis Footley, and he claimed her as a prize of war before killing her husband by cutting him in 2 with Orphan Maker, and then tore through her gown as she grieved. Later, with King's Landing in violent unrest after Helena's death, Jon and several Reach Knights wanted to march at once, though Unwin Peake preferred to wait for Baratheon support. After news of Aemon's death and the belief that Aegon II was dead, Peake wanted Daeron crowned. Hugh Hammer and Ulf the White refused, and Hugh claimed the Iron Throne because he had Vermithor, like Aegon the Conqueror had a dragon. That insulted the Reach Lords, and Daeron threw wine in Hugh's face. Jon then joined the Caltrops, the group formed to remove Hugh and Ulf and take their dragons. His plan was to simply kill them and let the boldest man try for the dragons, but before that plan could play out, Adam Valerian attacked Tumbleton at night, and Jon used the opportunity to find Hugh as the dragon seed called for his armor, warhammer, and a horse to reach Vermithor. Jon gave him false condolences, drew Orphan Maker, and opened him from groin to throat, but Hugh's men killed Jon soon after, though not before he killed 3 of them. Supposedly, Jon died after he slipped on Hugh's entrails. Sir Torrhen Manderly, played by Dan Fogler. Torrhen Manderly was a knight of House Manderly, the second son of Lord Desmond Manderly, and later he became Lord of White Harbor, Lord Regent, and Hand of the King in the minority of Aegon Targaryen III. Torrhen was clever and corpulent, so he was, in all fairness, the courtly king, but small folk called him brusque and gluttonous but also fair and just. So yeah, he was a fine man by Westerosi standards. He was courtly, well-spoken, well-dressed, well-disciplined, and a follower of the Faith of the Seven. In 129 AC, after Prince Jacaerys Valerian visited White Harbor and Winterfell to bring the North to Rhaenyra's side, Torrhen's father sent him and his brother, Sir Medric, south to aid the queen. But after Rhaenyra lost 2 dragons to Hugh Hammer and Ulf the White, the 2 betrayers, Torrhen and Medric argued that the other dragon seeds, Adam Valerian and Nettles, couldn't be trusted either. When King's Landing fell into riots, Torrhen led his Northmen to Fishmonger's Square and River Row, only to find the area full of Sir Perkin the Flea's gutter knights. His force lost a quarter of its men before retreat to the Red Keep. At Dun Fort, they boarded the Violande and sailed to Dragonstone. Torrhen and Medric stayed aboard while Rhaenyra went ashore, then later sailed back to White Harbor. In 131 AC, Torrhen became one of Aegon III's 7 regents. He objected when Sir Tywin Lannister put forward Lady Baela Targaryen as Aegon's heir, but then winter fever struck in late 132 AC, and it soon reached White Harbor, thereby killing Lord Desmond and, 4 days later, Lord Medric. Torrhen inherited White Harbor, gave up his regency of Aegon III, and soon returned north. Later, when Unwin Peake tried to match Aegon III with his daughter, Mirielle, after Queen Jaehaera's death, Torrhen wrote to King's Landing and argued that Aegon should marry a Manderly, since 2 Manderly Targaryen marriage pacts had already failed through cruel chance. In 136 AC, he came to the capital with 20 knights and cousins for the Great Council, and the lords chose him as hand. He appointed Isambard Arryn as Master of Coin and Gedmund Peake as Master of Ships, but when King Aegon III reached his majority at the age of 16, he removed Torrhen his hand, which Lord Manderly thought was a huge insult, and left within a fortnight to White Harbor aboard the Jolly Salt, along with Mushroom, whom he had offered a fool's post at the Merman's court. Sadly though, that's all we got for you this time, folks. For more Hot D content, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these awesome videos. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see ya in the next one.